3:30 in the afternoon. Out over the volatile waters of the Strait of Hormuz, the quiet sky suddenly fractures. 60 trails of pure hostile intent streak across the horizon, forming a massive coordinated swarm of ballistic and cruise weapons gunning straight for the absolute pride of the United States Navy. The target is the USS Gerald R, the ultimate American supercarrier. Deep inside buried concrete bunkers along the coast, the opposition commanders are already celebrating their perceived victory. They honestly believe their cheap swarm of flying steel is about to humble an empire. Their ultimate fantasy is to drag 5,000 American souls down to the cold ocean floor and force Washington into a desperate surrender at the negotiating table. What they do not realize is that pressing that launch button was not a stroke of military genius. It was a national suicide pact. They have exactly 90 seconds until impact, a tiny fragile window that separates living breathing men from total annihilation. But against the Aegis Baseline 10 framework, 90 seconds is a lifetime. It is more than enough time for an apex predator to bare its teeth and execute a flawless purge. 60 inbound threats are screaming through the air, yet not a single ounce of that foreign metal will ever kiss American armor. Instead, the next half hour will rewrite the textbook on absolute devastation. Welcome to the brutal reality of modern combat. This is Operation Celestial Doom. Picture the enemy war rooms right now. They are calling this their masterstroke, operating out of hidden outposts near Bandar Abbas and mobile launch vehicles dotting Kish Island. They think launching 60 supersonic carrier killers all at once will simply overwhelm the defense grid through sheer volume. It is a cute and entirely naive theory. They watch the bright launch flares on their monitors and cheer, throwing every upgraded weapon they have hoarded for decades into the sky. They just forgot who they picked a fight with. The millisecond those 60 engines burned hot, the massive Spy 6 radar system aboard the USS Gerald R locked onto every single one of them. This is not just a radar array, it is an all-seeing eye that treats these incoming hostiles not as world-ending threats, but as sluggish, outdated target practice. The supercomputer running the ship is quietly crunching the intercept geometry for every piece of flying junk with absolute perfection. The enemy thinks 60 is an overwhelming wave of destruction. To the American tactical network, it is just a mild afternoon warm-up. 3:32 hits the clock. The very first hostile munitions breach the danger zone, and the serene waters of the Strait of Hormuz erupt in righteous fury. The warning alarms scream through the American escort vessels, a piercing call that starts the slaughter. The Arleigh Burke Flight 3 destroyers, led by the USS Jack H. Lucas, step up to the plate. The vertical launch tubes blow open and SM-3 interceptors tear upward into the edge of space at an unbelievable speed of Mach 10. They do not even need explosive warheads to kill the ballistic threats. They shatter them with pure kinetic force, turning the proudest weapons of the enemy into scattered dust high above the earth. Right behind that outer shield, the SM-6 munitions deployed to hunt down the sea-skimming cruise threats. The sky turns violently orange, each flash representing millions of dollars going up in smoke. The coordination across the fleet is flawless. The USS Higgins, the USS Howard, and the USS Oaken pass targeting data back and forth over the CC network like an orchestra playing a symphony of ruin. Whatever incredibly lucky scrap manages to survive that outer net meets the SM-2 Block 3 seawall. Their chances of survival drop to absolute zero. And just in case anything ever got close enough, the Phalanx CIWS and RAM systems sit waiting to spit out 4,500 rounds a minute. 60 went up, 60 got erased. An entire arsenal threw itself at a brick wall and accomplished absolutely nothing. At 3:35, while the smoking debris still falls into the ocean, the real nightmare begins for the opposing forces. Panic floods their underground command centers. They scream into their radios for updates, but hear only static and the terrifying sound of nothing. American electronic warfare has just ripped their eyes out. Off the flight deck of the USS Gerald R, EA-18G Growlers roar into the sky. Carrying the next-generation jammer pods, these aircraft throw up a blinding wall of invisible energy, completely neutralizing every hostile radar and radio link within a 100-mile radius. Their screens go entirely blank. While the opposition stumbles around in the dark, the F-35C Lightning IIs slip into their airspace completely undetected. The sun is still shining bright, yet the enemy cannot see or hear a thing. The American pilots, looking through their UOTS screens, have every single hostile position locked and loaded. The defense grid the enemy spent a generation building is now totally useless, reduced to blind metal tubes pointing at an empty sky. The stealth fighters are not just dropping payloads, they are orchestrating a flawless digital blackout, dropping grid power, severing communications, and isolating the enemy leadership completely from the outside world. 3:45 rolls around, and the adversary learns a brutal lesson about global alliances. Sailing right alongside the American fleet are two massive Japanese Maya-class destroyers, the JS Maya and the JS Haguro. For the first time in an exceptionally long time, Japan is stepping into an active combat strike to protect an ally. The American flagship gives the green light. Instantly, 40 Tomahawk Block V cruise missiles blast out of the Japanese launch cells. These precision hunters scream toward the enemy shoreline, aiming right for the coastal command hubs. Enemy generals are sitting in the dark, stressing over the stealth fighters above them, when 20 Japanese Tomahawks slam into each of their main regional headquarters. The ground splits open. Any tiny shred of resistance is utterly buried under tons of concrete. This was not just backup fire, it was a massive reality check. You mess with an American vessel, you wake up the strongest alliance on Earth. Out back, the USS Bataan has 800 Marines loaded up and waiting for the word, helicopter rotors spinning fast. The enemy begged for a scuffle, but they bought themselves a total invasion. The clock strikes 4. Just half an hour has vanished since Tehran made the worst decision in its history. In the time it takes to grab a quick lunch, an entire national defense structure has been wiped completely off the map. The numbers are absolutely staggering. The adversary launched 60 weapons and hit absolutely nothing. 0 American casualties. 0 Japanese casualties. Not a single scratch on the paint of the USS Gerald R. In return, the Allied forces dropped over 600 precision strikes. That is a 10-to-1 payback ratio. The damage is catastrophic and permanent. 12 coastal batteries are gone. 15 fast attack boats are currently resting on the seafloor. 6 major naval installations, 5 strategic command hubs, and 8 massive weapon depots are nothing but burning craters in the ground. 55 radar dishes were shattered into pieces. 5,000 enemy fighters lost their lives in the blink of an eye. This is what it looks like when an arrogant military gets forcefully downgraded back to the Stone Age. By 4:50, the deafening roar of jet fuel and explosives finally fades away into the wind. The water returns to its quiet state, but the balance of power here is permanently fractured. The USS Gerald R. simply keeps sailing north, untouched and completely unfazed by the chaos. The opposing regime just got the most painful education imaginable on the difference between tough talk and actual dominance. They gambled their entire military on a surprise attack, and all it bought them was a burning ruin. You can act tough all you want, but the second you try to sink an American supercarrier, you delete your own future. 30 minutes is all it took to prove who really owns these waters. If you loved watching this ultimate display of sheer power, let me know where you are reading from in the comments below, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss another deep dive into modern combat. There is only one big question left to ask. What kind of fool would ever dare to test the god of war a second time?